Hey guys, Rob here with McDojoLife. In today's McDojo news, we're going to talk about how an MMA fighter out of the UK is currently on trial right now for allegations of drug trafficking. Let's check out the story. According to LiverpoolEcho.co.uk, a mixed martial arts fighter spent nearly a decade living in Dubai after a series of seizures of drugs from a gang in which he was allegedly a senior figure. Paul Cahoon went on trial at Liverpool Crown Court today, accused of involvement in a plot to traffic cocaine and amphetamine between, I'm going to butcher this name, Merseyside and South Wales in 2015. Which is the same year he moved abroad before being extradited back to the UK during 2024. Prosecuting attorney Stephen McNally told a jury of 6 men and 6 women on Tuesday that the 27-year-old, of no fixed address but from St. Helens, quote, had some notoriety due to his, quote, successful MMA competing career, during which he went by the nickname Boom Boom. The court heard during the prosecution's opening this afternoon that he was linked to hauls of illicit Class A and B substances worth up to £83,000 via meetings and mobile phone contact with supposed co-conspirators. One of these came on the evening of January 27, 2015, when a Ford Transit van was stopped by police on Hunts Heath Road in Widnes. Driver Michael Kaluner was described by officers as being, quote, extremely nervous and, quote, stuttering his words at this time, with his hands even seen shaking. The vehicle was initially seized due to him not having insurance, but when subsequently searched, it was found to contain a package of 248 grams of cocaine, which is worth anywhere between $7,440 to £25,000. This was found concealed behind a wooden panel between the cab and the rear. This parcel was also found to contain the DNA of a second man, Adam Parks, who Cahoon had visited at his home address earlier on the same day. The following day, January 28th, the defendant had a face-to-face meeting with Parks and a third male, James Bush. This was said to be a, quote, debrief based on the fact the drugs had been intercepted by police. Then on April 27th of the same year, police intercepted another vehicle near the junction of 36 of the M4 motorway as it was being driven from Liverpool to South Wales by Carl Curry. This led to the seizure of 20 kilograms of amphetamine, Class B drugs with a potential street value between £20,000 and £40,000. This contraband was found inside a, quote, bespoke hide, which had been created by cutting a hole between the boot and rear passenger seats. The car was said to have been bound for the town of Musteg and the home of Andrew Rogers, who later contacted Cahoon in an apparent effort to obtain, quote, information about where his drugs are. A further 2 kilograms of amphetamine and a small quantity of cannabis were subsequently discovered during a search of Curry's home. Investigators ultimately identified another 12 occasions on which conspirators made journeys from Merseyside to South Wales, as well as 2 in the reverse direction. Cahoon, who wore a light gray jumper over a white shirt and tie and sported short gray hair and a beard, would then leave the UK on May 10, 2015, living in the Middle East until his extradition last summer. A third seizure of drugs then followed late on the night of May 13th, when Peter McCaffrey's Subaru was stopped on Crosby Road South following a journey from South Wales. 9 kilos of amphetamine were found inside a drawstring bag in the footwell of the vehicle. Nearly £25,000 in cash and close to half a kilogram of cannabis were also recovered from his home in Seaforth. Kaluner previously admitted possession of cocaine with intent to supply, while Parks pled guilty to conspiracy to supply cocaine. Bush admitted conspiracy to supply cocaine and amphetamine, while Curry and McCaffrey pleaded guilty to conspiracy to supply amphetamine, and Rogers was convicted of the same offense after a trial. Mr. McNally told the court that Cahoon had used 9 different phone numbers during a 6-month period around this time and said, quote, the prosecution's case is that Paul Cahoon was a senior figure within these conspiracies. We say that Mr. Cahoon had people carrying out tasks on his instruction, and that by the way he acted, it was obvious that he was aware to the risks of detection, and he took steps to avoid it. The prosecution says that he was chopping and changing his telephone numbers in order to make it harder for any investigator to identify who he was in contact with, when he was in contact with them, and who was in contact with him. That poses a question. Why would Mr. Cahoon want to conceal his telephone contact? The prosecution's case is because it related to conspiracies to supply drugs. The defendant's case, on the other hand, as we understand it, is that back in 2015, he was a figure of some local notoriety in certain circles because he was a well-known mixed martial arts competitor. The defendant says that these people he was in communication with were friends and associates of his. He says that contact with them had nothing to do with conspiracies, it was innocent contact with his friends and associates and did not relate to drug supply. It might relate, for example, to them simply being friends of his or to mixed martial arts training or the recovery of debts, as his name and reputation would provide an incentive to get debts paid. But Mr. McNally said that Cahoon's phone activity had come, quote, at key times and relevant stages in conspiracy. But Mr. McNally said that Cahoon's phone activity had come at, quote, key times and relevant stages in the conspiracy. He said the prosecution's case is simply too much of a coincidence, that there is the level of timing and contact by Mr. Cahoon than it is anything other than indication that he was involved in the conspiracies. Cahoon denies conspiracy to supply cocaine and amphetamine. The trial before Judge Robert Trevor Jones continues. Let's break that down. So this MMA fighter out of the UK, who actually does have a pretty substantial MMA career, has been accused of a conspiracy to smuggle drugs. There seems to be quite a few people involved in this, and every time something happens to where they get caught or drugs get moved somewhere or something gets seized, his phone number keeps popping up around that time. Coincidence? I think not. But the trial's going on right now, so we'll find out what the verdict is here soon. This brings us to the question of the day, brought to you by X Marshall. Be sure to answer the question of the day in the comment sections below, so that way you could be entered to win a $100 gift voucher that you could use at xmarshall.com. And hey, maybe you don't win. That is completely fine. You can still use promo code McDojo10 to get 10% off any of your purchases at xmarshall.com. Have you ever judged someone's character simply based on their job, only to find out that that person is kind of a piece of shit? This happens a lot in religion with preachers and priests, etc. You name the religion, but it happens a lot with any people in positions of power. Typically, oh my God, this guy's great because he's a preacher. Oh, we find out that he molested children. Stuff like that. Being a martial artist, a black belt, MMA fighter doesn't automatically make you a good person. Unfortunately, pop culture has led a lot of people astray to believe that they should give virtues to people they just met just because they have a black belt. Honor, integrity, respect, discipline, and all that other crap they just give to complete strangers because they're good at beating people up. That is a very low bar for giving any virtues to anyone, but that's unfortunately how pop culture works. But I want to hear about your experience. Have you ever had an experience where you automatically assumed character of a person based off of their job and then turned around to find out that that's not really who they are at all? I look forward to reading your comments in the comment sections below. As always, thank you all for the likes, comments, shares, subscriptions, memberships. Check out McDojoLife.com. Keep the martial arts legit.
My baby got robbed the other day by degenerates. So she wanted to learn some new form of this self-defense. So she did her research and perused it online and found this dude said he could move shit with his mind. He called himself Seafood Paul Zimmerman. He got a dojo with a strip mall near Cinnabon. Now she spends all day trying to